Power or reliability? Lots of features or just the ones you need? If you're in the market for an R50 Nissan Pathfinder, these are questions you need to ask yourself. So those who have already seen my other couple of videos about my Pathfinder would already know this, but the second generation or R50 Pathfinder is one of the best value off-roaders in my opinion right now, and they're usually way cheaper than Forerunners, which actually perform pretty similarly. So the R50 Pathfinder was made from 1996 to 2004, but between the 2000 and 2001 model years, Nissan made some pretty major changes to the mechanical and aesthetic design, which splits up the generation into pre- and post-refresh models. Also, I'm going to be talking about North American four-wheel drive models, so if you're looking at getting a Nissan Terrano or other versions of the Pathfinder from across the world, some of the things I'm saying might apply, but likely the engines as well as the model years won't really be that useful for you. I also just want to say thank you to all the new subscribers, and if you want to see more videos like this and also off-roading videos, definitely like this one and subscribe. And I also just launched the Total Outdoors website, which is at totaloutdoors.ca, so if you prefer, this video is also available in written form on that website. Link is in the description. The engine is definitely the biggest difference between the pre and post refresh models, and it's also a slightly confusing update because it doesn't correspond with the exterior change. Ignoring the 4-cylinder options that were available, the first iteration of the R50 Pathfinder came with Nissan's 3.3-liter VG33 engine, which was used from 1996 to 2000, and it was also used in a bunch of other of Nissan's vehicles like the Frontier and Xterra. From 2001 to 2004, the Pathfinder came with the more powerful 3.5-liter VQ35DE V6 engine, and this is the same engine that Nissan used in the 350Z as well as the Infiniti G35, and they continue to use VQ series engines in many of their more modern cars that are also V6 powered. So you might have noticed that the 2000 model year has the old engine and drivetrain, but the updated exterior, and this is known as the 1999.5 generation, and it's only the 2000 model year that was made like this. Since this is just a mid-generation refresh, you might not expect the two V6 engines to be that different, but they actually really are. The earlier 3.3-liter V6 made 168 horsepower at 4,800 RPM and 196 foot-pounds of torque at 2,800 RPM. The 3.5-liter engine, on the other hand, made 240 horsepower at 6,000 RPM and 265 foot-pounds of torque at 3,200 RPM. And manual transmission models actually make 250 horsepower, but it is a lot harder to find post-refresh models with the manual transmission. So it's clear that the 2001 to 2004 iteration of the R50 Pathfinder has a big power advantage over previous versions, but I will say it doesn't necessarily feel fast, and the 3.3-liter engine is still totally fine for most highways and off-roading. If you're planning on making heavy modifications like steel bumpers, skid plates, bigger tires, that sort of thing, I would probably recommend getting the 3.5-liter Pathfinder, but the 3.3-liter powered models actually still have the same towing capacity and payload, so you'd theoretically be able to handle the same things, just way slower. So nowadays, Nissan's VQ series of V6 engines is very tried and true, but at the time in the early 2000s, it was still brand new, and the Nissan Pathfinder was actually one of the first vehicles to get it. Naturally, new versions of engines and vehicles in general are just less reliable when they come out than they'll end up being later down the line, and unfortunately, the Pathfinder is no exception. The 3.3-liter is known to be more reliable than 3.5, and it makes sense. There's much less that can go wrong, like no variable valve timing or anything like that, and Nissan had been making the VG series of engine since 1980, meaning they had lots of time to refine their design. Part of the reason the 3.3-liter is so reliable is how overbuilt it is for how much power it makes. It's a big, heavy, low-revving and torquey V6 with a cast iron block only putting out around 170 horsepower at most. And as an example for how strong this engine is, the supercharged Xterras and Frontiers actually had the same engine, but making an additional 40 horsepower due to the forced induction. Because everything else is so durable in this engine, the main threat to its reliability is actually the timing belt. And this isn't due to a design flaw or anything, but it's just the fact that the engine is an interference design, meaning that if the timing belt breaks, the valves will meet the piston heads and cause a lot of damage. As long as you replace it on time based on mileage or age, you should be good, but I would also recommend checking the distributor and spark plugs because they often seem to be pretty neglected in these older Pathfinders. Now it's time to talk about the rest of the drivetrain, including the transmission, differential, and transfer case. The transmissions are essentially the same across the R50 generation, with the option of either a 4-speed automatic with overdrive or a 5-speed manual. The differentials you'll find in post and pre-refresh models are also going to be very similar, but you'll be more likely to find limited slip differentials in post-refresh models and higher trims in general. These are one of those parts which got shifted around with different packages and trims, so I can't say for sure which exact Pathfinders have limited slips, but if you have a jack, you can actually test to see if there's a friction device in there by lifting up the rear wheels and spinning one tire, and if the other tire spins in the same direction, you have an LSD, and if it spins the other way, you have an open differential. At this age, most LSDs you'll find on Pathfinders are going to be pretty worn out, and they were never particularly strong to begin with, but you could always just get new friction plates for them or look into super packing them to get even more grip. Another new feature that came along with the 3.5 liter engine is an electronic transfer case. So in addition to freeing up some space near the driver's seat, the new transfer case also has an auto mode which turns the rear wheels by default and powers the front wheels only when necessary. Although the electronic transfer case was available for most trims of the Pathfinder, LE models also came equipped with an intelligent four-wheel drive system, which helps improve traction even more than just normal auto mode. And even though the intelligent four-wheel drive sounds really good, considering the first time I heard about it was when I was doing research for this video, I would say it's probably not a game changer over normal four-wheel drive. And just like every four-wheel drive SUV or truck ever, the Pathfinders had 2 high, 4 high, and 4 low transfer cases, and you actually also have the ability to switch from 2 high to 4 high while driving. Just a few things about styling and exterior updates to the Pathfinder. I think Nissan did a good job with the new design, and there are things I like about both, but it's clearly an evolution of the Pathfinder look and represents a slightly different era in the Pathfinder's existence. Most of the exterior differences are going to be towards the front. The updated bumper is a bit chunkier looking than the older version's lower profile design, but it still looks sleek and has a good approach angle. Personally, I like how the 90s R50s had metal incorporated into the upper parts of the bumper, much like other trucks at the time, and I also like how they used glass headlights which don't get hazy. On post-refresh models, both the bumper and the headlights are 100% plastic, but that has come to be expected in modern cars. On the inside, the difference is even less noticeable between pre- and post-refresh models. The main differences you'll find are the fact that the newer models come with a steering wheel that has an actual Nissan badge on it, and they also had slightly bigger cup holders, as well as the back seats had a fold-down armrest as standard, whereas in pre-refresh base models, that was not a thing. In general, post-facelift Pathfinders have slightly more features and creature comforts, but this is going to depend more on what trim the Pathfinder is than how old it is. Unfortunately, there is a lot less aftermarket support of the R50 Pathfinder compared to similar vehicles like the Toyota 4Runner or even the Nissan Xterra. But on the upside, there are still more than enough parts to build a seriously capable SUV, and luckily, nearly all of them are compatible with the entire R50 generation from 1996 to 2004. The only modifications that I'm aware of which are not directly interchangeable between pre- and post-refresh models are locking manual hubs and shocks. As I mentioned earlier in the video, the more powerful 3.5 liter Pathfinders will perform better with heavy modifications and bigger tires. Because this has the same engine as the 350Z, which has a huge aftermarket support, you might be tempted to modify the engine itself, but I would recommend keeping it stock in order to maintain reliability, because if you're going off-roading or remote camping, you definitely don't want to break down because it's kind of hard to get out sometimes. And here's my bottom line for which Pathfinder you should choose based on what you want. Thanks for making it this far in the video, and like I said, I also wrote an article with the same points at totaloutdoors.ca, link is in the description. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and let me know what you think of this format of video in the comments. Don't worry, there is actual outdoor content on the way.